One of the most talked about story elements in all of Star Wars is the return of Emperor Palpatine in the Rise of Skywalker. Not only will I give you the full canon explanation of how, we'll dive into what it means for the Sith and other examples of the power that was used. We know that Palpatine was working on his version of immortality since before he even became Emperor. When he was pulling the strings to have the clone army made before the Clone Wars, there was a mandate that preceded Project Necromancer on cloning a Force-sensitive being. The Kaminoan cloner, Nala Se, figured out a way where midichlorians could at least be added to the blood of a unique clone. She made this clone in private and called her Omega. At the time of this writing, it's unclear if Omega contains midichlorians naturally or if her blood is simply a mechanism for it. When Palpatine came into political power and fulfilled part of an ancient Sith prophecy of the Sith retaking the galaxy, he put many grand schemes into play. Project Necromancer was one of the biggest and most secretive, even more secretive than the Death Star. The goal of Project Necromancer was to create a clone body that could hold Palpatine's level of power in the Force. The project came close, but was never successful in absolute terms. When Palpatine talks to Anakin about a Sith power that can let a person live forever, he wasn't clear on how this would work. There's an ability some Sith can learn known as essence transfer. This power was not created for the Rise of Skywalker. The idea of it had been around since before even Revenge of the Sith came out. There are many legends about this very thing. When a Sith transfers their essence, what they're doing is transferring their consciousness through the Force and into another body, or even sometimes an inanimate object or place. In Palpatine's case specifically, after Vader threw him into the reactor of the second Death Star, his consciousness traveled to Exegol, a Sith haven, where Palpatine had been working on his immortality bid. Sith cultists, called the Sith Eternal, were fanatics devoted to Palpatine since he was a powerful Sith Lord. These zealots were instrumental in the success Palpatine did have. The planet Exegol is naturally steeped in the dark side. It's in the unknown regions of space and clustered in anomalies that make plotting it and finding it incredibly difficult. These Sith cultists also developed the massive fleet of Star Destroyers with the planet-killing cannons that Palpatine unveils in the film. Other rituals completed by the Sith Eternal amplified the dark side energies on Exegol, which created a conduit for Palpatine to draw from to maintain his connection to the physical world, even in his dying body. Palpatine was never successful in cloning a body that could contain an above-average midichlorian count, let alone one as high as his. When Rey and Ben Solo find Palpatine on Exegol, his body is kept alive and manipulated by machines. His mind and connection to the Force are strong, as the essence transfer was a success. His body is all but dead. In The Rise of Skywalker, we learn that Rey is a blood relative of Palpatine. We'll go with granddaughter because that's the easiest thing to say, since I don't know what the family tree is when her father is technically a clone of what would be her grandfather. The plan was for Palpatine to transfer his essence into Rey's body, since she is incredibly powerful in the Force and shares his DNA. For this to happen, Rey would have to strike Palpatine down in anger. This is an ancient Sith tactic to corrupt and leave the potential Force-sensitive vessel open to possession. Rey rejects Palpatine's taunt and is joined by the spirits of past Jedi. They overwhelm him with light side power and annihilate him once and for all. The return of Palpatine shows just how far he was willing to go to stay alive and acquire more power. It also serves as a narrative through line to connect the original, prequel, and sequel trilogies together. Palpatine's return is complicated and requires a lengthy explanation. I have to assume that's why the exact how of this return wasn't covered to the satisfactory of many fans in the movie alone. In the novelization of Revenge of the Sith, written by Matthew Stover, who worked very closely with George Lucas, Qui-Gon Jinn has a great quote about these exact Sith powers. Sith can never attain true life after death. The ultimate goal of the Sith, yet they can never achieve it. It comes only by the release of self, not the exaltation of self. It comes through compassion, not greed. Love is the answer to the darkness. I love this quote because it clearly shows more philosophical differences between Jedi and Sith. It's also a great justice that the thing the Sith they want most is impossible through their means of seeking it. In the canon novel, Shadow of the Sith, Luke Skywalker and Lando Calrissian encounter a group obsessed with the dark side called the Acolytes of the Beyond. This group collected Sith relics and artifacts. A mask in their possession was possessed by the essence of Darth Noctis. If the mask was worn, Noctis could control the wearer and his powers would transfer into their body. In the Clone Wars Season 6, Episode 13, Sacrifice, Yoda travels to Moraband, also called Korriban, a planet filled with dark side power. Yoda finds the tomb of Darth Bane, which is a vessel for the Sith's essence. Yoda faces it as as a test. Similar to the mask in Shadow of the Sith, Darth Momin's essence was tied to his helmet. Anyone who wore the helmet would be possessed by Momin. Sidious found this helmet and learned of Momin's past. He gave the possessed object to Darth Vader, who brought it to Mustafar. Vader sacrificed a couple people to Momin's possession in exchange for the ancient Sith to help him design his fortress. Vader's fortress on Mustafar, designed by Momin, tunes the natural dark side energies on the planet for Vader. This is all covered in the incredible comic series Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. In the Dr. Aphra comic series, a Murakami orchid is found. This flower has a high metachlorian count and can more or less talk to Force wielders of an equal power level. The one in the comic series has a Sith Lord spirit bound to it that possesses anyone who touches it. The Old Republic novel Red Harvest also features a Murakami orchid. This is where it's established as a Force-sensitive plant. It's sought after by Darth Scabarus, who is trying to create eternal life. In Legends, Palpatine also came back after his defeat aboard the second Death Star. In the Dark Empire comic series, Palpatine is able to transfer his essence into a cloned body. It's been a while since I read them, but from my recollection, he didn't have all the complications he faces in the canon version. Exar Kun is a powerful Sith that exists in several legends. Most relevant to this transmission is from the Jedi Academy trilogy. Kun's essence is trapped in the Massassi Temple on Yavin 4, where Luke Skywalker is now training the new Jedi Order. Force users who come in contact with it aren't fully possessed, but it does allow Kun to influence and corrupt them. In Knights of the Old Republic 2, the Sith Lords, Darth Nihilus's consciousness is tied to his mask and armor, and it has similar effects that we just discussed. That's the full canon explanation for Palpatine's return, along with more examples of the Sith transferring their essence, and even an alternative legend about Palpatine. Check out the description for links to some of the sources I used to write this video. There was a lot of research done, and check out this transmission next for more Star Wars lore.